Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Brothers Take podcast. I'm Kris. I'm joined once again by my brother, Eric.
Hello.
And deja vu. It's just the two of us.
Yeah.
Poor Adam. He's under the weather. He was struggling through our last episode, feeling very unwell. And he's, taking a break, looking after himself. He has been hit by the blight. But we're taking the opportunity then, the two of us.
Hit by the blight. He went back to work, got immediately sick.
This is it. So we wish him a very speedy recovery. But obviously, we're going to push on, myself and Eric, this week's episode. And we're going to be giving our first impressions of Final Fantasy XVI. Holy shit.
Holy shit.
How can we give... yes?
Yeah, I just realized that when this episode was released, it'll only be a couple of days before the actual game
It's
released. Yeah.
It is release week for Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
And how are we giving first impressions? Same way everyone else is. We're doing we're not like, we didn't get some early copies or any of that, but we've played the 2-hour demo, which is the 2-hour intro to the actual game, which is a really nice taster of what to expect, both from a graphical perspective, a beginnings of combat perspective, but it does look like the combat will get ever deeper. Characters, lore, story. We have a fair idea of what's happening and what's been set up. And so we're going to be talking about those things. So just for people to know, there will be spoilers for the opening 2 hours of Final Fantasy 16. But I don't feel like that's a spoiler warning for the game, because they put that out as a free demo. They want people to play this. They want people to know this stuff. So if you haven't played the demo, just be aware that as we talk about our first impressions of the game as a whole, that we will be talking about it as if you have played it. And that's okay. Like, you can pick up on those things and maybe it'll make you want to go play the game. Or if you have played it, great. And we hope you join in on the discussion. So if you're watching YouTube, jump down in the comments to share your thoughts at any point. And if you enjoyed this one, give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, ring the notification bell for all future content, including when we eventually talk full spoilers for Final Fantasy 16, when we eventually play the whole game. But that'll probably take a long time. To those of you listeners on audio platforms, you can also touch base on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take to give your take on Final Fantasy 16 first impressions. But without further ado, let's get iconic.
I thought you were going to say let's mosey.
Yeah, but that's an FF7 thing, right?
I know, but it's FF.
Sure. Wyvern. Come here, Wyvern. Okay. I suppose just to start us off, going in, like, what were you hoping for from a new Final Fantasy game, regardless of whatever you had seen from 16? Like, what would you have liked to have seen from a Final Fantasy game? And then we can get into what we actually got.
Well, I would... I mean, the main thing, I suppose the summons, but we knew the summons were going to be in it. The Chocobo, all the typical things, but you expect them in it. Other than that, then I suppose just paying attention to a deep dive of lore and letting the lore dictate the characters and the story, as they have done for previous Final Fantasy games. But I felt in recent new editions, not any like remakes or remasters, but kind of that sort of the drift off a bit, I felt. And this one kind of seems like they were sort of bringing it back. I felt kind of, giving you that taster where it's like I'm understanding the lore in the world just by how these characters are talking. But also it feels natural. They're not like, oh, I'm dropping some exposition here. It's like, no, we're giving this information to this character because it's important for this character to know this. But then I, as a player, I'm like, oh, that's super interesting. Let's know more about that. Yeah, and it's like, oh my god, stop.
So yeah,
certain point. Yeah,
it's before we get into what we actually got. I suppose what I wanted from another Final Fantasy was, yes, that kind of golden age of storytelling, the huge lore, the kind of game where afterwards it could spawn its own franchise. You could make movies of it. You could write novels of it. You could, you know what I mean? Final Fantasy VII being my favorite game of all time, and it is its own franchise in and of itself. It's not just the 7th number of Final Fantasy. It is its own franchise. Final Fantasy X being one of my favorite games of all time, having this incredible lore, and yes, it had a sequel and it had like audiobooks and it's got fan art and fan stories, and for the longest time people have been wondering, will there ever be a 10-3 or could they do a 10 remake? And um Final Fantasy 9 is supposedly maybe getting a remake. There was that cool
Nice.
fan made thing
There was that one, yeah.
that was incredible from fans, like it was nuts.
Mm.
But so yeah, I was looking for, and I suppose 15 was one I was really excited for and haven't played it. And I really enjoyed 15. I had a great time with it. I thought it was a great game. But it was missing, it still felt lesser in terms of that golden era of Final Fantasy, in that it was missing like the lore. It was missing that big wide like, and that did have multimedia projects. It had an anime, it had a movie, it had the game. But even with
Mm.
all that combined, it still felt like it was like, this feels like an incomplete story. It didn't hit the heights and the big twists and the big revelations that
No.
you come to expect from the kind of classic Final Fantasy game.
Well, yeah, usually in the classic ones, each character has their own story. They may not be the
their
main
own
character,
arc,
but they have their own arc. But then Final Fantasy 15 kind of didn't. Gladiolus got a scar on his forehead, and Igneous got blind, and Prompto took photos. And that was the arcs of your three characters. Well, no, Prompto then revealed he was actually a Magitech. And
right,
then when
but
that's
they brush past it.
yeah,
though.
when he
Like,
reveals it, everyone goes, "It's fine."
Yeah,
All right, okay. So yeah, and then they had to release the Royal Edition, which is like, "Oh no, here's all the cool lore we established." It's like, where was that originally?
yeah,
And even at that, you have to read it. It's like a codex; you have to read it. So
yeah.
yeah,
It's not
so,
like when you play 10 and you're like 2 hours in and so many things have been explained to you about the world, how it works. And then beyond that, there's twists and revelations and, shocking revelations at that within the world. The same with like 7, seriously, which I suppose at this point in gaming, it's just known. But that original game, when people didn't know what happens in that game, how fucking every scene had shocking revelations, plates dropping, killing thousands of people, the death of Aerith, like these scenes that people did not know were going to happening, and then like legends about, oh, I bet you there's a way to save Aerith. No, there isn't. No matter how many times people have tried over the last 25 years, she'll always die, and that's it. And then the big cloud reveal, and it's like, oh my god, and then the cloud reveal is deeper than you even realize it was originally, because you get to the actual cloud reveal and you go, oh my god. And I suppose that's the level of storytelling that I wanted from Final Fantasy going forward. That kind of deep, where there are so many people who will argue forever about which Final Fantasy is their favorite. But they were kind of all equally as deep. Like, I had a friend, and Final Fantasy 9 was his favorite. And I've played 9, and I mean, it's not my favorite, but I really, really like it. But I can see there is the deep lore, there is the deep history. Each character does have an arc. Vivi is one of the best characters in Final Fantasy, hands down, So that's what I was looking for Final Fantasy 16. And at one point, I was a bit nervous because they were like, there's kind of really only one playable character. It's not really party focused, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh god, I don't know about, like, that doesn't sound like what I'm looking for. And they were talking about like the action oriented thing, and I was like, yeah, cool, don't get me wrong, like the combat is not really what I'm worried about, because I've been okay with the natural progression of Final Fantasy. It's gone away from turn based, and it has been for a while. It's can they bring back the deeper storytelling? And we've only played 2 hours. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow, this game is way darker than I expected.
It's
I don't think all Final Fantasy fans are going to like it.
It actually reminds me a lot of, I actually last week tried Final Fantasy Type 0.
Oh.
I tried that.
Yeah.
Played it for about 5 minutes and went, that's fine. I'll delete that and I'll get off it, right? Because it wasn't really for me. But that starts off actually quite dark. That actually starts off with there's like these 4 kingdoms. One kingdom decides to aggressively expand. They invade another one. The game essentially starts with a city on fire. You're for about 2 minutes following this the journey of this one soldier. It kind of makes it like they're the main character,
Right.
and like they see their friends get blown up. They're about to be killed when their chocobo helps them. The chocobo is covered in blood. Your man gets on the chocobo. He's covered in blood. They're riding along. He then falls off the chocobo because he's bleeding. He ends up calling for the main character while he's lying against the bleeding, dying chocobo, and he starts to cry about how he doesn't want to die. And I was like, this is really, really dark. And then with this one, it's like, let's just do that, but make the graphics way better so you can really tell how graphically dark this game is.
Do you know what? I think you're onto something though, because I think like okay, it's not outside the realms of Final Fantasy to be
No,
dark, right?
no.
You play so many of the games have at least incredibly dark moments.
Mm.
7 is haunting throughout, and there's so many things Sephiroth does that are dark as fuck, right?
Mm.
10, as whimsical and happy as the characters are and the art style and stuff, is an incredibly dark story and really twisted when they get to like the reveals of what the kind of religious hierarchy are essentially doing to everyone and that kind of thing. And people 6, people talk about Final Fantasy 6 and the sequence in which Kefka destroys the world. Like, of course that's dark in subject matter, but maybe the art style helped soften the blow a little bit, where it's like, I'm so engaged in the story, this is so dark, but at the same time there's a degree of separation in that.
Well, you're looking mainly at polygons.
Right.
Right, or the PS2 graphics with 10,
But the graphics here are excellent.
Yeah, the graphics are very good.
And then there's the blood and just the way characters are treating each other, even like it's not just that certain characters die and that's dark.
Well,
and the way they die is dark, but also the way people are talking to each other, the way they're treating each other, surprising use of bad language, especially for Final Fantasy. Again, it's not like they've never done it before, but not necessarily using these words. You cock is one of the first things said in the game.
Yeah, it's very it's a much more high fantasy version of Game of Thrones.
Well, yeah,
I know.
Yeah, people are going to compare it to Game of Thrones a lot.
Yeah, because I know you don't like Game of Thrones, but even the very opening sequence of this demo, you play as Clive. You're much older at this point. It even gives you the year. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Give us some context. And you're with these 3 other guys, and you're in some deserty area. Graphically, that looks great. The fucking surrounding area, and there's a battle going on.
How cool was that?
The battle was awesome. You're just there to find the Shiva dominant. You don't know why, but you're just there to find the Shiva dominant. You gotta move while the battle's happening, and then it cuts to like a war room in a fortress, and everyone's kind of talking their politics and politics. Like, they weren't really. It was just essentially one guy wanted one chap to do something, and then it was just a no. But it was still has that politics element. That battle sequence goes on. You have that cutscene with Titan and Shiva fighting, which was awesome. You have that sequence where the whole thing's fucking crumbling around you. And then we cut to 13 years before. And it gets in that nicer level of that medieval stuff. Well, nicer medieval before everything will turn to shit.
Yeah.
Where we also get introduced to Clive's and Joshua's mother. Who?
Right. What a standout character.
What a bitch.
Yeah. Isn't it unusual, though, to... Not that it's never happened, but typically in these stories, they make the father out to be the tough, estranged one. Even look at Final Fantasy X, Titus and Jecht.
Oh, yeah, it was his mother was nice.
His mother was nice, and his father was like where all
horrible.
the issues were coming from, and he hated his father as a result.
You go to 7, only for Cloud, there was only Claudia.
There's literally a lack of father figures throughout the entirety of Final Fantasy VII, and apart from say Red 13's Sato, who he hated because he thought his father was a coward, and then of course you get the big reveal. And then you had
Barrett
Barrett is a
Barrett
father
was the
figure,
only
right?
only good one, because then you have Hojo was horrible,
Hojo is a horrible person. Yeah, yeah,
and President
exactly.
Shinra wasn't good.
Yeah, like there's a huge thing focus on mothers more so in Final Fantasy VII, but having this character, this mother, and it's not just that she's like a mean mother or a bad mother or yes, she has a favorite son, whatever. But then of course, and we're talking spoilers for the first 2 hours of the game.
Hmm.
Towards the end of the demo, when you see that she's in on the coup that led to the death of her husband and her supposed favorite son,
Hmm.
you're like, oh, what is she up to? Or who is she working with? Or what happened here?
Yeah, I have theories about that, and the fact as well, like she initially Clive is her firstborn, the oldest. He's the main character.
And he let her down, right? Because he's not the Phoenix.
Yeah, he was supposed to be the dominant for the Phoenix, and
He's not
it
good enough. It
rejected
rejected
him.
him. Yeah.
So she rejects him in turn.
Yeah.
And then when
you're not good enough.
yeah, when she sees his body at the end of the demo, she sees his body among the ruins, and she tells some soldiers, kill him.
Yeah, because he means nothing.
Right. And then actually, oh no, wait, let's brand him and make him like the most lowest level of person in a kingdom. Because we see that earlier on as well. Clive, when the first time you do see Clive 13 when he's all older with a brand and he's with 3 other people with brands, it's a bit like it's an interesting time too. And then when we get Clive, like the kind of origin side of it all, Clive is young. He meets a guy who has the brand and he's treated
who's
like
being
shit.
treated terribly. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a slave.
The voice actor for Clive was on the Easy Allies podcast.
Okay.
And he came in and they were playing the demo together. And he was telling a few stories. And he told them a bit of backstory about what the brand means, right?
Okay.
And it is naturally given to people who are born who just have magic, right?
Okay.
So most people in the world use like bits of crystal that they've gotten from like the mother crystals,
right,
for magic. Whether that's to create water or to create fire, or basically to keep their way of life going.
mm-hmm.
And these people who are born who have the brand can naturally create magic, and they are used as tools and as slaves. Basically like the mutants from X-Men type thing. They are treated terribly, and it's this whole thing of like, you don't let them have power because they're already powerful, but also it's like using them is better than using the crystal because we need to save the crystal.
Wow.
So, like
okay.
they will like use these people as like slaves and as a workforce till the point when they die. It's like, oh, we've just used up their magic, so now we'll start using the crystal.
Right. So it's almost like the Matrix, the machines using humans as batteries,
kind of thing. Yeah. That's another good analogy, actually. So I thought that was a really cool. So that to me, it seems like every little thing has lore, has backstory. Like everything is going to be fleshed out and explained in some way, which is like the opposite complaint of 15.
Right, where nothing was really explained.
Yeah. But okay. Do we want to just jump straight into it? Like, does it matter about what order we do this in?
Well, no, but I mean, like, we're talking about, like, we mentioned the mother and we just jumped through her kind of story. And actually, back to her, like, the fact that you have the coup at the end where you have all those armored soldiers. I think they're called, like, the Ironborn or something like that, or...
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and they attack, and then it turns out she's with them, and they're the Empire. I think the Empire... This is my theory.
Cool.
Okay. From this is that the Empire kind of takes in different kingdoms. Right?
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know the state of Rosalith, which is the kingdom Clive is from, and Joshua, the kingdom of the Phoenix. I don't know if they're part of the Empire. But I'm assuming she made a deal to gain power. She'd rule. And Joshua become king because the king is dead, and therefore now the Empire has control over a dominant. But I think that's what they're trying to do, is gain control of all the dominants.
Oh, possibly, yeah, to use their power.
Yeah, to kind of control everyone with an iron fist.
What did you think of Clive's father? Maybe he'll show up later in the game in flashbacks, but obviously, if not, this is his whole arc. Fucking hell.
I really liked him. Again, yeah, it's that
His
sort
death
was
was
gruesome as fuck.
was really gruesome. Oh my god, I couldn't believe it. So I remember seeing in the trailer, like I remember us talking about the initial trailer before, and it was very careful about not showing who was killed, but it showed someone killed and then blood splat on like
Joshua's face.
Joshua's
Yeah.
face, right? And it was like, well, without context, I was like, yeah, whatever, bit of blood, who cares? I don't know who that guy is. I don't know who got killed. But when you see the sequence play out, and it's like it's his own father whose head is cut off
Mm,
after his chocobo is killed, and the blood splatters all over Joshua's face from people who they trusted.
yes.
It's very dark. That's
It's rough out for the kid. You can understand why the kid would lose it and turn into a phoenix.
100%. But
Yeah.
yeah, I liked the dad. I liked his character.
Because
And
his design and his voice sounds very much like I am a prick. But it's quite nice that they have that he is really nice. He is a good caring king.
yeah,
And that yeah, then you have the contrast of the mother. The mother who's almost like Lady Macbeth.
yeah. There is something
Just
Shakespearean about the drama too.
yeah, just manipulate from the shadows, manipulate with words. You know, she doesn't really do anything wrong, but she's just so dismissive of Clive that
Yeah,
even people comment.
I'm
Oh,
curious what her role will be throughout the game. She's a very interesting character.
hmm.
And I feel like this game is going to have a lot of characters who, obviously, there will be an overarching villain, right?
Hmm.
But I think there's going to be a lot of characters who, like, much like Shinra from Seven, where they have their own little agendas, or some of them their allegiances maybe change throughout the game, or you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like the Turks start off as your enemies, but they kind of become your allies later on. But Heidegger is always stays bad. Hojo was kind of always doing his own thing, really, and kind of
Yeah.
like that. I feel like there's a large cast of characters here, and they are going to have their own individual agendas, and some of them might end up joining you maybe at some point. Others definitely not. Like I'm not even fully convinced this Benedicto one um is a straight up villain.
No.
You know what
No.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's she's slightly
Well, misguided, a sense of like she's been doing that for long enough that to her that is her world. But I
yeah.
suppose maybe through your actions, you'll get to kind of swing her over to your side.
What do we think of Clive as our main character?
I like Clive. I like
I
Clive.
like Clive.
Clive's
I
good. I need to see more of him, but
yes.
I do like the story that they're presenting with him.
Yeah.
So and his motivations are very good.
Yeah. I like that he's not a so far he is not a, and I say this with respect for the series, he's not a cringy protagonist.
No, he'd be closer to Cloud.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Cloud and Orin kind of slapped together almost.
a little bit. He's a little bit more, I suppose, because Cloud was always like pretending to be cold. And
Right.
the whole thing was about finding out, or him breaking down that cold, harsh exterior and becoming the real Cloud, right?
Mm.
Clive is, it appears, you know, he's determined at first. He wants to prove himself to
Mm-hmm.
his family. And then I think he's going to be really, really angry. Just this raging, angry person for the rest of the game is
Yeah, he's
the
gonna be
kind of
pretty bitter. But I suppose maybe
he's pretty pissed.
that's probably gonna be the character arc for him then. Is that he's bitter and angry and his allies are gonna teach him
to learn to let go.
yeah, learn let go. Because I'm gonna assume one of the playable characters you get is that remember there was Joshua and Joshua had his friend, the female friend who always had Torgal, who's
Jill.
voiced Jill. So I'm assuming she joins you. She was voiced by Amicia. And Josh was voiced by Hugo.
Yeah, Amicia and Hugo. What are you doing here? Amicia.
Yeah.
Hugo. Well, just on Jill then for a second. And little Torgal. Torgal.
Who becomes very big Torgal.
He does. It's yeah. I don't know if everyone has played that, but when you finish the 2 hour demo, you get to play like a half hour curated demo, and it is of Clive later on in the game, and they give him abilities that he wouldn't yet have at that point, but it's just to give you a feeling of what it's like changing between abilities and stuff. And then Torgal is with you. As so is the character of Sidolphus, who was this game's
Silphus,
version of
aka
Sid, the
yeah,
dominant of Ramu.
is he the dominant or is he just someone who's blessed?
I think he's the dominant. Because when he went up, his hair it all went white and stuff. I think
Yeah.
he is Ramu.
Okay, because I was thinking it was either he was Ramu, especially with the white with his hair going white. But when he
Yeah.
mentioned give us back the dominant and then referring to the dominant by male, I thought the dominant they were wanting was Ramu. And Sidolphus was the guardian.
The description for that chapter though said that they got wind of the dominant for the other icon of fire being in this castle. The person who Clive is looking for.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Whoops.
So that I get the impression that that's who they're talking about. However, I don't think that's who's there, and I think that Benedicta does have a dominant, but doesn't have the one they're looking for.
Oh shit! Odin.
I think it's Jill.
Jill's the dominant.
I believe Jill is Shiva. That's what from watching trailers, things I'm putting together. I think Jill is the dominant of Shiva. I think. I could be so wrong on that, and I think they're gonna find her there.
Oh shit!
Because she was in that battlefield. Maybe Benedicta takes her in hostage or something. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
But we'll see. What do we think of Joshua?
I mean, he's Hugo.
He is, right?
He's just, I am a kid with lots of power and everyone looks up to me, but I'm also really sick. So everyone like coddles me.
I liked his line where he said, everyone likes Clive, don't they? And because Clive obviously feels like he's not good enough because he was rejected.
Mm-hmm.
But Joshua, who has the ability, also feels not good enough because he's not like a brave warrior like his older brother. So I really liked that dynamic where the two of them were talking to each other, and Clive was basically trying to comfort his younger brother.
Well, I like the build up and connection that they're establishing between the two characters before the finale of the demo.
What a
that's the moment. Yeah. So you have this lovely moment.
Vicious, yeah. Go on.
You have this lovely moment with Joshua, and Joshua's so nice and innocent. And as far as I was concerned, I was like, right, Joshua's probably going to get captured. That's the motivation. You're trying to find Joshua, right? Probably have a bit of a fight, but then you both fall unconscious and he gets captured. All right, because he's such a nice kid, and it's Hugo. It's like we can't brutally kill that kid again. Right. Oh, no, we can.
Oh, we can. We can do way worse. We can fatality that fucking kid. And only for the kid looks like a giant firebird at the moment. It maybe doesn't seem as vicious as it is, but even at that, I think like the wing gets pulled off and there's just constant blood, and then you hear Clive's voice saying, "Please stop," pleading, and Joshua begging for help, and it's like this is oh my god.
Yeah, he's begging Clive to help him, and there's a possibility that Clive is the one killing him.
Yeah, are we of the opinion that it's Clive who's killing him?
I don't know because there's two Ifrits in the game.
Is there, or is that some trailer fakery thing to make you think that was a different Ifrit? Because we know from all the marketing that Clive becomes Ifrit.
He does.
Right.
And
when he's pleading, he's not. You don't see him there. You just hear his voice as Ifrit is doing that.
Through the vision of an icon. Well, it looks like to look through the world in Icon's eyes.
I think it's him.
I would prefer it's him because that's so much more tragic. Is that he's hunting down himself for the whole game.
Essentially, yeah. So he saw a hooded figure at one point, very quickly, but there was something eerie about it. And then just before Ifrit came about, he did see this fiery shape thing,
this fiery humanoid being. Yeah.
So it's not to say that there isn't a villain who possessed Clive and did this, right? True Clive. But yeah, I think Clive did with his own hand kill his younger brother, which is really fucked up.
I was shocked, surprised, and I kind of just giggled at the end because I was like, that is ridiculous. Because as you said, it's a fatality. Like he is. I threw all those fireballs at Ifrit, and I fucking did nothing. He still killed me.
Yeah. And it is, you don't actually expect that level from Final Fantasy, I don't think.
No, I mean like,
The series often deals with loss and tragedy and stuff, but this is really
yeah. I mean,
messed up.
last time that we personally had like a tragic Final Fantasy like death that really stuck with us was Aerith's. And there was no blood there. It was just the sword goes through and she just falls. And it was
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
shocking because you're not expecting this character who's with you for so long to die.
Right. Because, like, it went even, right, you go to 10. When Orin goes, you're like, well, of course. Like, he's the old mentor, the Obi-Wan character. That character is
Yeah.
supposed to go. And
Yeah.
then when Titus goes at the end, but it's like, yeah, but it's the end of the game. Like, when this is over, in a way, they're all gone. Because
Yeah.
the story is over. So it doesn't really matter that that's how the story ended. If I lost him in the middle, though, I would feel his loss for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And then
In this one, it's you have to feel it for the rest of the game because it dies at the start.
yeah, and even with 15, they you lose Luna Freya, but it feels so unearned.
Right, because you're not spending any time with her.
This in a much shorter period of time. I
Yeah.
feel like they've already established this character and the connection between the characters, and then rip the character away from you in such a horrific way to use as the catalyst of the story, not as the turning point of the story, which still means it's possible later on in the story there is a turning point. I'm like, what the fuck else could they do?
Yeah. But like what even makes that so much worse for Clive is not only is it Clive the older brother killing his younger brother, which is the Phoenix, which symbolizes the fall of their kingdom essentially. Not just as the
Yes.
king dead, now Joshua's dead.
Yeah. And the kingdom in ashes. It's a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah. But it's he was the shield. He was Joshua's shield. He was supposed to protect him.
His role is to protect his brother.
Yeah, his whole purpose. And now completely undone by this enigmatic fiery being in shadows.
Yeah, I really hope with the way they're writing this so far, because another thing that I really want from Final Fantasy 16 going in is because I don't think they've done a bad job with good protagonists and heroes and things like that, right?
No.
But the series is also has been at times very famous for the villains. But I think it's been a while since they've had a real knockout villain. Like I kind of liked Arden, but it's also because I wanted to like Arden, because I wanted there to be this singular great villain again. Arden was of Final Fantasy 15. Arden was charismatic. I liked his backstory, even though it was very loose, but also he, as a villain, just did things that other villains from other Final Fantasies did.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it was like a greatest hits type villain. But I remember like playing like 12 and 13, and I really felt like they were lacking that villain. You know, that Sephiroth, that Kefka, that Seymour even, who keeps popping up and doing horrible shit, and you're like, I hate you, I want to kill you. So I really hope that this game has a new great
Also,
villain.
if the villain is seriously called Emperor Barnabas, I'm gonna be a little bit pissed off because I'm gonna be like, Barnabas, that's the fucking name of your emperor? Are you kidding me?
That not the inspector from a Midsummer Murders? No, that's Barnaby, isn't it?
Yeah. But like when you're doing the iconic challenge and you are fighting Benedicta at the end, which is an awesome fight. I really do like that fight. I think she does mention Emperor Barnabas. And I was like, really? That's the name you went with? You have all these other names?
But do you not think, even if that is the character, do you not think that is, or this empire is the Shinra, so to speak, as we often say, and this other enigmatic figure?
Well, that's what I hope.
The actual villain, which is what I hope too. I hope there is a big struggle. Things seem bad. It's like, how could you get an enemy worse than this? And then there is. Because that is, to me, the Final Fantasy of classic days.
Yeah.
That you're dealing with the Empire, they're evil. Oh, you thought they were bad? Kefka is now a god and has destroyed the world. Things are way worse than they could have been under just the Empire, you know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
really
yes.
hope that's what they're doing here. And I feel like maybe they are. Because so far the writing is. It feels like narrative is first,
Mm-hmm.
is like the primary focus. And even like the way the cutscenes are done. This is like some serious. Obviously, the graphics are of modern gen and everything, but getting serious like PS2 era flashbacks of like you play some gameplay and then you put the controller down and watch a good, lengthy, proper cutscene.
Yeah. Just let the story unfold. Like, yeah, exactly. You're playing the game, and then you watch the movie. Then you play the game, and then you watch a movie.
And even the cinematics between Shiva and Titan, I'm like, I would watch this movie. This is fucking cool.
They were awesome. That was a really fucking cool scene.
And
The
that's only the
Titan.
beginning.
That was Titan. He's just walking on all those people, and I was like, "Holy crap, that guy is huge!" Like Shiva's big, but my god, that guy is a Titan.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
What did you think of? We've spoken a lot about the story there and the characters. What did you actually think of the combat? Because it is a very different step.
Hmm.
You know, yeah, it feels like a natural progression of where Final Fantasy was going anyway, but it is different.
Yeah. Dodging is very hard. I kept
Yeah,
forgetting. I kept forgetting Or 1 is the dodge
kept
because
pushing
I
circle, right?
kept pressing circle, and then I'm
Yeah,
Phoenix dodge, like
yeah,
fire dashing into the enemy. I'm like, no.
towards the enemy and getting
Yeah,
hit.
I'm
Yeah,
like, stop.
yeah, I was the same. I really wish if you can remap the controls, I'm making circle dodge. It's just in my bones, circle is dodge, and R1 is not. If R1 was the dash button, that would make more sense to me. It just does not feel like the dodge button.
Yeah, or if the Phoenix dash, you could do it in any direction.
Right, because then at least if whatever way you're holding the analog stick and doing it.
Yeah, that's your dodge then because you are Phoenix dashing. But
Yeah.
then when you can change to Garudas or Titans or whoever, then you don't have a dodge, you have another thing. Like Titans you can block, Garudas you do the embrace thing where you can actually grab people from far and bring them close to you.
Yeah.
So then it can kind of change. But yeah, I kept doing that. It was very annoying. But I actually quite liked the gameplay. I preferred it a little bit in the iconic challenge because I had all the different
Yeah, well, it's more
abilities to go
variety,
through.
right?
Yeah, I was able to go through that, and I was able to see, oh, this is very much a combo based game. A little bit like I suppose Devil May Cry. I think wasn't it an early reaction when you first saw it? You thought that?
Well, the guy who worked on I think the lead for the combat is the guy who was lead on combat for Devil May Cry 5.
Oh, okay,
So very specifically, they sought out. They were
that
like,
guy.
"We want to work with you because we want a really action heavy based combat." So yeah, like anyone who's like, "Oh, there's a bit of Devil May Cryisms going on." Yes, correct. There is.
Yeah, yeah. But it really worked quite well for the sort of powerhouse that I think they're going with Clive. The
Mhm.
fact that Clive can have so many iconic abilities and um just kind of cutting through all the enemies. I didn't really like the stagger system. I know stagger was in 7, but sometimes it just felt like, by God, I'm cutting through this health just to get to that health, and I kind of want to just get to that health.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for me so far, I like the combat. As far as Final Fantasy games go, I don't think this is better than 7 remakes
No.
combat. I think 7 remake is the pinnacle of Final Fantasy combat, and it can only be bested by whatever they do in Rebirth, really. In terms of developing further on that. However, that aside, I still think this is a really, really fun combat system. I do like action based games. I didn't like the tutorial, the training with the captain thing, right?
Okay.
I was actually worried when I was playing that. I was going, to me, this is bad onboarding. I should just be told when I'm in my first actual combat encounter, press square to attack. Boom, boom, boom. Now press this to do this. Boom. And learn as you go, much like the bombing run.
Right, yeah.
This whole stand in a
Well,
square
that's to me
learning. I
reminded me of that kind of like that medieval fantasy. Like, again, when you get when you look at something like Game of Thrones, before any of those characters are fighting anybody, there is that moment of like, keep your feet up. You know what I mean? Like Bran is trying to practice with bow and arrow, and then Arya shows him up. When Jon Snow goes to the Night's Watch, there's often bits where they're practice and stuff. So I felt that that works in keeping in tone with the medieval setting and the medieval story. That typical idea of the the cliche, even though you don't actually see it in that many things, but it is like a cliche of the prince with the wooden sword and he's trading with the commander or something, and everyone's all happy dappy, and then the father gets decapitated and the child turns into a phoenix. But
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know,
uh,
like, yeah, I get it.
but I get what you mean. You want to just get into it, like
I do. I don't find that a fun way of onboarding for a video game, right? It reminded me of, and I would actually say this other game is a big influence as well on Final Fantasy 16. So a lot of people are going to say Game of Thrones. I think The Witcher 3
I knew you were about to say which trick.
is a huge influence, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Would you also feel like there's some influence there? Well, I mean,
yeah.
all kind of high fantasy, really, but real dark high fantasy.
Hmm.
Like I would assume later on we'll see some imagery that's very Lord of the Rings inspired in this game. I wouldn't be surprised. In
Well,
fact, there's
that
there's
Crystal Mountain thing.
castle thing that looks like Minas Tirith nearly.
Yeah, yeah. When I saw it, I
Um,
was like, that's awesome.
so I hope to see more of that too. But I suppose I remember like when you're playing The Witcher 3 and the first thing you're doing is like the training stuff. And I just hate that so much. I'm like I'm supposed to be this super pro monster hunter. Why can't I just like tell me the controls as I'm hunting or fighting something, rather than go through training first? You know. However, yes, in terms of the character development that happens during that, I don't mind that as much. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so then when you actually get to go and fight the goblins, that's where I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm enjoying this.
Mm-hmm.
And going and fighting goblins is a lot cooler than going and fighting rats in a dungeon as your first encounter of enemies. So again, this is like apparently in the first ever Final Fantasy, the first enemies you ever fought were goblins,
Oh,
and
really?
this was a direct reference to that. Apparently,
Oh, that's cool.
they wanted to. I liked the design and the sound of the goblins.
I did too, and I like that they're referred to as well by beastmen. So there's classifications for the monsters in this.
Yes, and I liked that they called out a troll.
Gigas.
Gigas, they call it.
They call it a
Yeah,
Gigas, but
it
yeah,
looks like a troll.
it looks like a swamp troll.
Yeah, and then of course the leader gets killed by a Marlbor or Morbull, they called it this time around,
Morble, yeah.
and
Wonder
that's
if
your
that's like,
first proper boss fight, really.
yeah, I was very surprised that was the first boss, considering it is very
The
similar
legends of
to,
the character, right?
right, yeah, it's very similar to the Marlboro, which tends to be quite a difficult enemy.
Yeah,
So I was very surprised by it. Unless it's like a weaker, smaller version of a Marlboro, and we'll actually fight one of them later. That's like more like an adult for, if you know what I mean? Like maybe it's an
yeah,
infant is a
yeah,
Morble and an adult is a Marlboro, and that's way harder.
and maybe much bigger. That could be
Maybe
cool.
much, yeah.
So I liked the combat once I got into it, basically,
Hmm.
and I have to say I enjoy the main battle theme,
Yes.
especially when it really kicks in. You know, like
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, yeah, this sounds like a Final Fantasy battle theme. Like it does.
Very happy and cheerful, and it's like, yeah, I'm killing all these people, and there's blood everywhere, and I'm super happy about it.
Lots of blood.
All the blood, nothing but blood. There's actually, again, when you're doing that iconic challenge and you're going through that fortress to hunt down Benedicta, there's sometimes you just find these bodies and there's blood just streaming from them, and I'm just like, okay, all right, this is happening. Everyone's dead.
Do you think this game, from what we've played so far, is going to be like? I think it's going to review very well,
Hmm.
right? And we'll know as this week goes on, really, because the reviews should come out, maybe 2 days before the actual release or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think amongst audiences it's going to be divisive?
I kind of hope so.
Why?
Well, as long as their reasons are, good, I suppose. Well, I feel like it's true to a Final Fantasy game if it's divisive because each one is so different.
Yeah.
Like take into account we didn't like 12. 12 got a remaster. Some people love 12. Like we didn't really like 13, but there was a
12 is
it
some people's favorite.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and 13 did so well it got 3 of them. And we
Yeah.
were like we just couldn't get into it. So I think that is in tune with Final Fantasy is that it does divide the fans. Some people go, no, this is my favorite. And, oh, it's just not capturing this that I want and stuff. But I just hope it doesn't like damage the game or anyone in particular. I hope that when people are praising it, they praise it, and I hope when people don't praise it, they don't send death tracks. Let's put it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
silly. Carry on.
yeah. So I hope everyone's quite mature about it, but I quite. It's very true to Final Fantasy that people are like, oh no, I didn't really like it as much as this other one. I would have liked it more.
Yeah.
It was like that, or it's like, oh no, I love it. It's my favorite. I think it's very good. It's actually a very good game for an introduction for people into Final Fantasy. I think.
Yeah, in a way. I think it could be quite hard to if you got used to this. Now maybe this gets more whimsical as it goes on. I don't know. Because there is like a whimsical side to Final Fantasy. Like,
Yes.
okay, out of curiosity, how do we think Moogles are going to fit into this game?
They're gonna be vicious little monsters that eat
Yeah,
children's
yeah,
feet.
right. Like, what are they going to be? Because they're obviously going to be in here, right?
Yes.
Because I don't think you can do a Final Fantasy and not include Moogles in some way, right? They have the summons, they have the chocobos,
Yeah.
so they're trying to include they actually the crystals. They
Yeah.
have the classic Final Fantasy setting of like the first 5 games, and then of game 9 and of game 11 and of game 14. Like most Final Fantasy games, if you lay them all out, have been the high fantasy medieval setting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they have all those things. It's just that they've gone for a darker, more mature tone rather than a teen tone that they usually go for. So
you're gonna like you're probably gonna have to go to like I don't know, maybe like a Moogle village in a forest.
I think that would be a really lovely way of including them.
Yeah, but then the Empire got there first, so it's actually covered in ash and smoke, and their bodies
They've
are
all been slaughtered, and there's a Moogle hanging in the tree.
Yeah, tree.
See, now I would get a bit giddy about that because I'd be like, Jesus, this is so dark, and I like it because it's different to what we've seen before. And also, I quite like dark fantasy and dark stories. But something like that, I think, could really anger a lot of Final Fantasy fans.
Yeah.
You know, you're more and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but you're more cutesy, Kingdom Hearts kind of fan base.
I think
a bit pissed off at something like that.
I think they should have some cutesy, maybe not specifically the Moogles, but they should have some cutesy moment or some cutesy character that can almost liven up and make it like kind of funny, almost like Bad Ape from War of the Planet of the Apes. Like,
yeah, sometimes you need levity.
yeah, so that kind of comedy, it's just like that clash of this like bright humor to Clive's dark disposition. Like,
Yeah,
I think it would just be quite funny for the audience to witness. So no, I do think they kind of need some.
and you know what? I think obviously it's not present here because it's
setting up the story.
It's setting up the story, right? And it's focused on doing that. I think in the grand scheme of the game, though, there will be. I can't imagine they're going to populate a whole world without having any form of light and humor or a beautiful moment here or there, something nice to see. Like even when you play the God of War games, the 2 newer ones, God of War and God of War Ragnarok, and the moments that stick with you are often like the beautiful moments, like the giant jellyfish that you just let go, and it's such a beautiful, fantastical moment, or like the humor of characters like Sindri and Brock, but they never change Kratos' character.
No.
He always remains quite... Now, humor comes from the fact that he's so serious.
Yes.
But he remains serious and steadfast.
Sometimes he tries to tell a joke, and it's just the worst joke, like.
Yeah. Because it doesn't
jokes.
suit him, like.
Yeah.
So,
but even, like, The Witcher has humor in it for quite a dark high fantasy. Game of
Yeah,
Thrones has humor in it for a dark fantasy. Lord of the Rings, while it's not like
lots of
real,
humor in it.
there's loads of humor in it, but then they also know when to take themselves seriously. So I think that nice Infinity War is another one. And knows when to take itself seriously, but also knows when to drop the humor, even in a
Yeah,
serious moment like Thanos holding Gamora. You have Peter Quill saying, "I'll gotta shoot that nut sack of a chin right off your face," and it's
right. And
hilarious.
it's funny, but it's emotional.
It's emotional. So yeah, I and with the way they're balancing these characters and telling the story, I can see them doing that. I'm not saying it's definitely going to be in it, but I could see them doing it, and I could see it being done quite well. I mean, I say Torgal is going to be super cute when he's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, and I have a feeling that from what we've played so far, I'm not worried about the writing.
No.
To be honest, I think I think these guys have possibly crafted a very believable world, a very well thought out world with lots of lore and history, and a really good character driven story.
Hmm.
Which is maybe why they've gone away from the whole party thing, because even though you will have characters accompany you on your journey, it's just that I don't think you control any of them. And that's really just to focus on Clive and his journey.
Hmm.
I love where I love the way he uses the sword. I love the where he puts it. I love how he like holds it behind him when he's getting ready for a fight. Uh, they're small things, but they're really cool animations.
It's a little reminiscent of Titus because he always held the sword behind him
Yeah, a little bit actually. Yeah,
and then sword on the back like every hero ever.
I remember when we first saw the announcement trailer. I actually thought the two versions of Clive, which now I get it. One of them being the teenager who has a slightly different hairstyle and like the white clothing,
Hmm.
and the other one being the older one with the darker hair and everything. Like, I actually thought it was two different characters. Remember when they first announced it and they showed like his face come up and the next face come up? It was like in one voice, like, "I'll kill you if it's the last thing I do," you know. And then in
Huh.
Final Fantasy 16, I thought it was two different characters that you play as separately. And obviously now we have
We
way
know
more
it's not.
information, and we know that you actually play as Clive through 3 periods of his life.
Oh.
In his teens, his 20s, and his 30s.
Oh.
So this is a long journey.
Long journey. I wonder if that 20s like just goes straight into his 30s, or is it like, are we skipping some time again? Because he's 15 and then it's 13 years later, so he's 28.
There's got to be a time jump, right?
Right, because you can't be playing
Of
the game
some
for
of
two.
some of some kind.
You can't play
So
the game for 2 years.
maybe there is another turning point in the story.
Hmm.
Maybe to do
Maybe that.
that, to do a successful time jump,
Yeah,
which would be cool.
that'd be
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Like how many years? Oh my god.
I'm very excited now to play this game.
Yeah.
I have my copy pre-ordered.
Yeah, same.
I am really looking forward to it. And I like that after you've played the demo, you can just continue from where you left off. You don't have to play it all again. Now, I might just get back into the flow of it. Plus, it was really like I might play the demo again like the day before the game comes out, just to be a bit closer to it.
Mhm.
Um, but it is cool that it's not a case like because sometimes it's like if you started a game and you got to a certain point and then you lost all your save data and you just want to know what happened next, but you have to play through all of that again.
Hmm.
And sometimes it can really, even though you loved what you played, it can really put you off
Yeah, Demon
playing it,
Souls.
right?
I cleared the game and then lost all my save data. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh.
yeah. So I appreciate that the demo allows you to just,
Continue onwards. I will probably just continue onwards. I think I'll be fine in
yep,
that regard. But yeah, that was fucking that Titan and Shiva moment was sick. And Garuda
was
was
sick.
Benedict is very cool. Benedicta.
Yeah, and the voice
Very
acting so far is cool.
It's very cool. Yeah.
And the way the characters are acting, again, very non Final Fantasy esque.
Very, very they're not giggling kind of every 5 seconds.
It's not huge arm movements and over movement and
No, it's very, very down, very grounded
very
and
grounded.
stuff. Yeah.
Do you know that's a good way of putting it? Because even though there's magic and everything like that, there's kind of rules to the magic in terms of they have to use crystals or they have to be branded. You
Mm.
know, everything is like grounded. There's rules to the magic.
Yeah.
I tell you what, we're fuckers though. During the iconic challenges demo,
Mm-hmm.
um, the characters who could cure the enemies,
Oh yeah.
so it's like kill them first. That kind of reminded me of like playing like the Arkham games, where it's like you start realizing there's certain enemies you should take out first,
Yes.
which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. I think I kind of just. I don't know if that really ever affected me. I kind of just was Arkham Knighting everybody in there. Like I was like
Yeah.
Batman, just whoop, 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 and before I knew it, everyone was dead, and I was like, whoa, okay. And every so often, Torgo would just be doing his weird spin attack and it's hitting people. I'm like, all right, oh, is everyone dead? Okay, moving on.
Any theories at all about why everyone seemed really the characters in it seemed really surprised when towards the end, and again we have our theories that it is using Clive, but we don't know. But everyone's really shocked that there is a second icon of fire, as if Phoenix should be the only one.
Mm-hmm.
So, any theories as to why that is or what's happening?
Yes, I actually have a theory.
Excellent. I want to
I
hear
have a
it.
theory. Fuck. Yes, I have a theory about your other one about the mother and what's going on there with the
Okay. No.
Emperor wanting to get all the dominance, right?
Yeah.
And now I have I also have a theory about that thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's a second icon of fire, right? Who arisen at the right time to specifically kill and stop at nothing to kill Phoenix, because Phoenix became a weak icon of fire, and thus there had to be one to replace it to be strong.
Oh, so you think it's related to the fact that Joshua was ill, and
Mm,
they kept bringing that up?
mm.
That
That's,
the dominant or the icon who heals is in fact sick.
yes, so now they needed an icon to take that out and replace it as the new icon of fire. Means you could end up seeing other summons that are to replace other icons. Like Ixion there to replace Ramu for lightning or something.
Oh,
Uh
yeah.
because
Like
I
the
know
next
they
generation of
mm, because
icons.
I know in one of the trailers they kind of spoiled a good bit of the plot, which I didn't really like.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, in one of the trailers they were talking about how. Do you want me to say it, or do you want to just
Well, if it's
leave
in a
it? Actually,
trailer, it's okay. I mean, you can say it.
okay,
I probably
fair
have.
enough.
I think I've watched all the trailers. I just don't remember the specific one you're
It's
talking
where
about.
Clive says that the crystal has dominated their world for too long, and that we should destroy it and break it. So I think that the crystal is somewhat a living entity,
Okay.
and that produces the dominance, and then when a dominant becomes useless or whatnot, it will replace it with a new one.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Oh, that could be it. But then it's also possible, if our other theory is correct, and that Clive was controlled in that moment to turn into Ifrit and to kill his own brother,
Right.
right? And he's hunting this invisible force, essentially hunting himself, and he hates himself or whatever. That if he does have those ideas that are shared in the trailer of, oh, the crystals have controlled us for too long, we need to destroy them, that those ideas are actually not his own, and he only thinks they are.
That would be cool.
And that throughout the game, you are playing as a puppet of this actual villain for whatever reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I know is a bit of a Sephiroth Cloud dynamic, but I don't think they're the only characters in all of Final Fantasy to have that dynamic anyway. I think
No.
that happens a little bit more often with other characters too.
Well,
And
Noctis got controlled by Arden a few times as well.
yeah, he was manipulated by Arden throughout and stuff. And I'm not gonna pretend I've played all of them. I haven't. Do you know? I really want to though check out maybe the Pixel remaster and start playing some of the older ones because I'm like, you know, there's probably like going to be lots of like references and stuff in this that maybe you don't
There's
get if you haven't
there's
played those first
there's
few.
probably references in all of them that we just don't get based on the fact. I mean, Magitech that was in 15
Mm,
wasn't that initially introduced in 16 in 6?
I think so. I think six is the first to do it.
Yeah, because Terra I think had her own little weird walking bipedal tank that was called a Magitech.
Yeah. Oh no, they definitely had Magitech at six. I just can't remember was Magitech mentioned at all in any of the previous ones. There's also a detail about there being an ancient civilization that was more advanced over 1,000 years ago or something in the world of Final Fantasy 16. And as you travel through the world, you'll find ruins of that ancient civilization. And I feel like there's a big part of the story as to whatever happened to those people.
Hmm. Okay.
So that'll be interesting. Again, I feel like they may be setting us up for a really big, grand Final Fantasy.
Oh shit.
Yeah, which I've been excited for. Fucking what? This is what I want. I remember playing the other ones when we were younger, and then coming up with my own like stories inspired by Final Fantasy.
Yeah, sure. I mean, at the moment we're playing the campaign that I create. I
That's right.
fun fact, everyone. I got Final Fantasy converted to a very simplified tabletop RPG, and then I've been GMing it for Kris and two of our friends.
Yeah, and funnily enough, even
And
before the character was ever revealed to us of what he looked like or anything like that,
yeah,
my character basically looks like Clive.
the older Clive.
Yeah, older
Yeah,
Clive. That's
yeah.
basically what my character looks like.
All right. Okay.
Like, he does though. I picked out artwork at the concept art online at one point. I was like, yeah, something like this. It's basically Clive.
More, it's very similar. Yeah, they're
So I'm
very
like,
similar design.
yeah, that's my guy. So I thought that was really fucking cool. Okay, any other final thoughts or impressions on Final Fantasy 16 before we finish up?
Oh, I like going to actual gameplay. Iconic challenge, the icon abilities. I like that each one of them is used for different things.
Yes.
Like if you're surrounded by enemies, you'd use Phoenix's fire thing. If you're wanting to build up a lot of stagger, you'd use Garuda's claws. And then if you just want to really do a lot of damage, you use Titan's fists. And I like that then that they're unique in that way and they match the character of the summon.
Mm-hmm.
So
actually, I enjoyed that fight as well with the two, with like Garuda's sort of
sisters
minions or whatever. That was a pretty cool fight.
That was a really good fight.
And then also, I really like I know some people probably don't like them because they think of them as QTEs or that they slow down the action. I thought they were cool though.
All the cinematic
dodging strikes, the cinematic dodging that would happen in cutscene that just make it all feel a little bit more epic. And like every single fight had like epic moments.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, this is so fucking sick.
Yeah. So I like that.
Yeah. Can't wait to play the actual game. We'd love to hear from you guys, whether you've played the demo when you're checking this out and you want to tell us all about your thoughts on the game so far, or how hyped you are, or what theories you have about who is this enigmatic character, fire character, what's going on with Ifrit, did Clive kill Joshua, what's going on with his mother. If you have any theories, do let us know. Or if you're checking this out much later, you've actually been playing the game, let us know what you think of the game. Are you enjoying it? What do you think of it so far? So if you're watching YouTube, jump down in the comments to share your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this, why not give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, ring that notification bell for all future content. To those of you listeners on audio platforms, you can also touch base on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take, again, to give your take on Final Fantasy 16. We will be back in the future to talk about this game, as well as many, many, many other topics in the weeks to come. So thank you, and we'll be back to talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.